So a lot of insane, irresponsible, illogical, irrational things are happening right now with the financial markets. And to talk about that plus a lot more, we are joined by the one and only Doug Casey. He is a writer, researcher, strategist, and one of the most influential anarcho-capitalists out there. Doug, how are you? And holy gracious cow, do you even believe what is happening out there in the financial markets? Because I'm absolutely flabbergasted. I can't make sense of it at all.
Well, we're at a major turning point in history. Uh, right now, I'm talking to you from the People's Republic of Aspen, Colorado. I got here a few days ago, flew up from Uruguay, which has just broken its lockdown. But the consequences of this COVID hysteria, and it is a hysteria, are just monumental. It's at least as great. In fact, it's much greater than what happened on 9/11. This is the biggest thing since World War II, and it's just an overture to much bigger things that are coming. This COVID hysteria is, I'd say it was the pin that broke the bubble, but that's inaccurate. It's more like the sledgehammer than broke the bubble. And notice that I don't say COVID itself, I say the COVID hysteria. And on top of the hysteria of the government's predictably idiotic reactions to it, making it much, much worse than it would have been otherwise. So I guess that's how I'd start with my
What
response.
Yeah, one of the craziest responses from all of this is seeing a lot of people, invest in the dollar, especially with the fact of what the US Federal Reserve has been doing, specifically with printing almost $9 trillion. 22% of all US dollars were printed in 2020. We're going through a kind of socialistic system for the very rich. Meanwhile, everyone else is left screwed and suffering. What do you make of the kind of US economic markets? Because, we're getting such conflicting views that absolutely make no sense at all, and they're very illogical.
Well, those of us who study economics have predicted something like this for many, many years. And we've almost started to look like the little boy that cried wolf, because anytime uh, in the last, well, I don't know where I should start counting from, but certainly since 1971, when the dollar was lost all ties to gold, it was obvious that the house of cards was going to collapse. But they've successfully built the house of cards higher and higher. And I think this time we really are going to see a collapse. Uh, the question is only what type of a collapse, how long it will be, how long it will last, and how bad it will be. My off the cuff answer is yes. This is probably the collapse that we've been waiting for so long, for good reasons. And it's going to last a long time. And it's going to be much worse than we think. In fact, I've said for years that when the Greater Depression hits, it's going to be worse than even I think it's going to be.
Yep, and there was even an Australian politician that just came out a few moments ago, and he said this whole scenario kind of unfolding here is for a planned reset. And that's, we're going to show clips of articles in that in just a little bit. But what do you think is happening here? Because a lot of people are blaming the media for the fear hysteria, a lot of people are blaming China. And then when we look at Sweden, when we look at the total kind of world picture, none of this, none of this absolutely adds up at all. So, who do you think is more responsible here? The media, China, the banksters? How do you see this kind of? Where do you see the fingerprints here?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. The media is certainly responsible, but they're really just an arm of the government, an arm of the state at this point. Uh, the state, the media, put them together. That's where I'd put it. Uh, why is this happening? We've had since biologically modern humans came on the scene a couple 100,000 years ago. I'm sure that we've run through thousands of viral flu epidemics, and they've come and gone. In recent years, however, there's been a a lot of media hysteria about them. Swine flu, bird flu, China flu, Asian flu. And in the past, these things, in terms of the number of people that have died from them, the numbers have been much bigger than this current COVID hysteria. It's not even in the same category, not even in the same class with the so-called Spanish flu, which happened in 1918 and 1919. So I don't know what's going on because we're all living in our own little silos, our own little bubbles, and all we really hear about the outside world, except for things that we see with our own eyes, is what we hear in the media, and I don't believe any of that. So it's a very odd situation. The most we can hope to do is not be adversely affected by the stupidity of the world around us today, and even it's possible to profit from others' stupidity. And this is a prime example of stupidity.
Yeah, stupidity to say the least, because it's absolutely perplexing to see all of this kind of unfold. And when we really look at the big winners here, there are winners here. It's usually the super rich, and usually the system is slanted in a way where, of course, it always favors them with the U.S. Federal Reserve. So there isn't usually an option for people to actually make it out of this trap that's usually laid out by us, by society. So I'm going to kind of transition a little bit here before we get into some of the alternatives, because I know we got a lot to talk about gold, and there's a lot of different things to discuss, particularly about that topic. But before we go into that, I'm seeing also a lot of speculative news surrounding gold and the U.S. election. There's some people that, of course, are saying that no matter who wins, the gold prices are going to go up. That's some of the articles that we're seeing out there right now. But who do you think is going to win, and how do you think it's going to affect the markets?
Well, on my blog site, I don't like having a blog site. That sounds so. There are millions of blog sites. Okay, well, I have one too. It's called internationalman.com. And about a month ago, I wrote an article there giving the 6 reasons why I thought that Harris and Biden were going to win. And I'll still stick by those 6 reasons. It doesn't look, listen, I'm not a Trump fan, except insofar as to say that he represents cultural conservatism. He's, from an economic point of view, he's a complete idiot. I mean, he's the one that's plumping for Powell to print more money and lower interest rates, lower still. And everything he's done economically, which is disastrous. And starting a trade war with China and the Europeans. The only thing he's done good economically is reduce a lot of American regulations. So that's wonderful. Shows that he's got a business background, but he knows nothing about economics. Anyway, people can go to internationalman.com and go back about a month, and they'll see the 6 reasons why I think Biden's going to win, explained in some detail. And I'm afraid I still have to hold to those reasons. So I'm pessimistic. And I'm pessimistic not because Paddy Power in Ireland handicaps Biden to win. They were wrong the last time. I made a money bet with Marin Katusa that Trump was going to win last time. I can't make that bet this time. And I'm not saying that because the polls say that Biden's going to win. It's for more serious reasons than that. It's a pity. This is catastrophic. Trump is bad, but Harris and Biden are much, much worse, actually.
Yep, and I would actually agree with you on your commentary. Everything that you're saying right now looks exactly like the way it's unfolding. And yes, I'm also, not a Trump fan, but especially when you look at Biden and Harris and their policies and the people that they want to put in place. I mean, putting Andrew Cuomo as the AG, confiscating people's ability to defend themselves. I mean, it's just utterly, utterly insane and crazy. But regardless of who wins, obviously there's going to be a lot of unprecedented changes that we're going through now. Those changes are going to be kind of exacerbated. But as far as the financial markets, do you see them affected differently in case Trump wins compared to, of course, when Biden wins? Because I'm seeing some talk online saying if Biden wins, gold is going to go up. If Trump wins, gold is going to kind of stay where it's at right now. What's your assessment on that kind of larger kind of analysis?
Well, look, the financial markets have been very, very good to me for quite a while, and especially recently. But and we can talk about the financial markets. I've got some opinions on those. Everybody's got opinions on it, so you can take it for what it's worth. But I think I was one of the first people that said in print and in mediums like this that starting over a year ago, well over a year ago, that the US is looking at a civil war. And the reason I say, and this is much more, it's kind of a big effect on markets, but it's much, much more important than the financial markets. And I almost don't see any way out of it because when you have one political entity and you have two or more groups that can't not only just can't get along, but actually hate each other and conflict with each other on the most basic level, there are only two alternatives. One is that you split the country up into different geographical areas so that these people can do what they wish in their own areas. That's the intelligent solution. The other solution is that the two groups fight for control of the central government and then suppress the other group after they win. And I draw people's attention to the war between the states, which is often called the Civil War, but it wasn't a civil war. It was a war of secession where the South simply wanted to part company from the Lincoln regime. But this time around, I think we're going to have an actual civil war. They won't allow the so-called blue counties to divorce themselves from Mordor West, Washington, D.C.
Yep, that's something that I've kind of been saying too, that this kind of violence is going to be perpetrated. We already have people shooting each other because of their political differences in the street. And one of the main factors that I really contribute to it being bad and going to be worse is mainly the mainstream media. It's mainly the largest kind of propellant of divisive, hyperbolic, partisan nonsense that sets into this frame of this guy's going to steal everything from you. This guy's going to take everything from you. And whether it's a Democrat or Republican, liberal or conservative, we have these sides becoming more and more louder, these kind of radicalized voices. And as far as these voices are not being rectified. These echo chambers that people are on, especially on social media, especially when they turn on the news, those voices, those scarier voices are becoming louder and louder. And I have to agree with your analysis that this is going to definitely crescendo because there's nothing de-escalating the situation. The situation is only escalating because of the mainstream media and social media that are pushing people in this direction. And it's very hard for individuals not to get emotionally wrapped up and involved in this and then just totally enthralled to the point where we are at right now, which is a very dangerous one. There's a meme that I just posted a couple minutes ago, actually, that talks to this point, and it has a banker guy sitting in the middle with two workers in front of him, and there's a bowl of cookies. Of course, the banker guy in the middle has all the cookies. One of the construction guys has one cookie. One of the guys is black. One of the guys is white. And then the banker turns over to the guy with no cookie saying, "This guy stole your cookie." Meanwhile, he has all the cookies. So I think the financial stuff is important, and you have been helping a lot of people gain their financial freedom, which I think is a very important asset. I mean, we talk about different levels of freedom, but financial freedom is one of them. And one thing I know is that you also put your money where your mouth is. I've known you for a long time. I've looked up your work. We had you on this channel a number of times, and you definitely put your money where your mouth is. And one of the things that you kind of been talking about a lot is gold. And I wanted to kind of talk to you about that because this kind of seems like your kind of expertise. I know you were involved with Gold Mining Incorporated. It's a company that we actually interviewed on this YouTube channel a couple months ago. We were telling you about this company. They just got on the New York Stock Exchange. So thank you to all the audience members who listened to us. You're welcome to all the audience members who listened to us. But what can you tell us about this kind of company? Because you've been involved with them for a very long time. It's one of the reasons I started kind of looking at them because I knew you were involved with them for a very long time as well. What can you tell me about them, and what do you think of the overall kind of gold market moving from this insanity? Because we're seeing the price down a little bit now. How do you see this in the larger backdrop of it all?
Well, it's hard to summarize all this in the space of 2 or 3 minutes, or 5 minutes, which I suppose we're going to devote to this subject. Look, there are about 2,000 so-called gold mining companies in the world. Some are exploring for gold. A couple of guys with the mule that raised some money in a public company and are looking for the treasure of Sierra Madre. There are development companies that have found a gold deposit and are raising bigger money to drill it out and to move towards production. And then there are current producers. Those are the three big categories of mining stocks, a couple thousand. 90% of all the companies that claim to be gold mining companies are just crap. It's Pareto's law on steroids. So having been doing this for many years, which I have, I've learned a few things. And you mentioned goldmining.com. That happens to be one of my biggest positions. Why do I own that particular company? Their approach, very smart, incidentally. The guy that runs it, Amir Adnani, is a very smart guy. He's also in uranium, another smart place to be, but very different. The idea with that company, the way they progress the way they're going about this is that starting with the bottom of the gold market a few years ago, it peaked back in 2011 or something like that. And since then, went down until a few years ago. Now it's going back up again. But during the recent bear market, Amir went to 5 different countries. Maybe there's more, 5 or 6 at this point. And he acquired gold resources at very cheap prices. There's a difference between a resource and a reserve. A resource is where you know the gold is there, but you don't know if it's economic. It's dependent on the gold price. A reserve is something that's had a lot of work and a lot of drilling on it, and you know that it can be produced profitably. So Amir went out and acquired about 15 million ounces of gold resources very cheaply because nobody wanted them at the time. And now I suspect almost all of them, if they were re-drilled, at current prices would be reserves. Now, the company, I'm trying to pull this out of my memory banks. It's a couple hundred million Canadian dollars of market capitalization, and the gold in the ground that you're buying at this price, you're buying the gold for about $10 an ounce. Gold is at about $2,000 an ounce. Major mining companies don't explore for gold. What they do is they take over smaller companies that have found gold. Now, Gold Mining Inc., and the reason I own it, and the reason I continue to buy more, is they have 15 million ounces in the ground. And I think they're all going to be economic ounces. So the stock is going much higher. But we're embarked upon a gold mining stock bull market. It's going to be one for the history books. We've had some fantastic gold mining stock markets over the last 50 years. I can't believe that I'm talking about this from personal experience. But I think this is going to be the mother of all gold mining stock bull markets. And I can tell you why I feel that too. But
Yeah, no, please do. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of signals. I mean, it's not healthy for a country to print 22% of all US dollars in one year. It's not healthy for a country to literally have to print out $1 trillion every few months to avoid a collapse. I mean, that's something that just is illogical, irresponsible in itself. And that's why I've been telling, the viewers of this channel, I've been kind of exposing them. We interviewed Amir on this channel. We interviewed a lot of other companies on this channel. We've been telling people it's best to kind of diversify, have your eggs in many baskets rather than just one particular basket, because again, the times are extremely uncertain, and in those uncertain times, you want to make sure you kind of have a safe haven. But what signs are you seeing? What kind of makes you look at this kind of economy, and what are the signals that you personally are looking at?
well, first of all, as you're well aware, gold is the only financial asset that's not simultaneously somebody else's liability. And with the dollar turning into toilet paper, which it will, incidentally, with the trillions that they're printing up, they can't even keep track of it. It's totally out of control on the part of the government at this point. This is going to end up in a classic economic train wreck, really serious, because it's bad when countries like Argentina or Brazil or any of these 50 countries in Africa, when they have an economic train wreck, okay, it's bad, but it's localized. But when the US has a financial catastrophe, and that's what we're looking at, there's nobody big enough to help bail it out. And the center of the problem is the US dollar. The dollar is the lifeblood of the economy. No, of course you've got to buy gold. It's going to be reinstituted as money from day to day. This is why China, for instance, which happens to be the largest gold producer in the world, I'm not sure most people are aware of that, not only keeps all the gold that it mines within the country, but they buy a lot of gold from abroad. The Russians are buying gold from around the world, even they're about the third largest, fourth largest world's gold producer. People don't want to hold dollars. So yeah, we're going to have a major gold market, gold bull market, and I hate saying this with gold at $2,000 per ounce because I've been saying this for years at much lower prices, but it's going higher from $2,000 an ounce. And gold mining companies, here's something that's interesting: the big money in hedge funds and mutual funds and bank fund management, things of that nature. The people that manage money have to hate gold. At best, they don't understand it. They think it's a pet rock, like Warren Buffett. He's kind of an idiot savant, actually, a genius, but in some things an idiot. And they don't own gold. They don't own gold stocks. But as they look around, they're going to find that the average producing gold company produces with all-in costs, all-in sustaining costs, everything, replacing the gold and administration costs, everything. All-in costs are about $1,000 an ounce right now, but gold is 2,000, going to 4,000. So these gold companies are absolutely coining money, and at some point, these idiots in the hedge funds and so forth are going to notice this, and they're going to buy it. And when they do, it's going to be like trying to get the contents of Hoover Dam through a garden hose. It's going to be really explosive this time.
Yep, and I get a lot of comments too saying, if something happens, we're not going to be able to eat gold. There's too large of a denomination of them. They're not worth as much. Well, people have already found a solution. I'm up here in New Hampshire. A lot of the trades, a lot of the things that happen internally within the Free State Project are done through agorist means and ways. And one of the ways is through little goldbacks that they have literally printed on these little papers that represent $5 that are actual gold printed on here that people trade within the community here for certain items or whatever they may need. And this really is something that I think people should strongly consider, look at, and then make up their own decisions on what to do. But Doug, thank you so much for providing all this information, all this expertise. You wrote so many books before providing a lot of this information. The Drug Lord and Speculator one is pretty good too. But you also have a new one called The Assassin. What can you tell us about that new book that you just wrote?
Well, the series of novels that my co-author John Hunt and I are writing started with Speculator, which is about a mining fraud and a bush war in Africa. Good book to buy, Speculator, incidentally, if you want to learn something about gold and the gold mining industry, and bush wars in Africa, if you want to get involved in one of those. Then our hero, Charles Knight, becomes a drug lord, both illegal and legal drugs. And that's very interesting for a lot of reasons. But the novel we've just completed and has just hit Amazon is Assassin. And people think, assassin, you must be talking about killing Trump. No, I'm not, actually. But the book is about political assassination. And it's unjustly besmirched reputation. In fact, in the real world, some people just need killing. I'll go out. and say that very forthrightly. So Assassin talks about the history of political assassination, revisionist history, and Lincoln, Caesar, things like that, the techniques, but most importantly, the morality of political assassination and actually killing people in general. Is it right or wrong? Under what circumstances? And there's some very interesting conversations there as our hero proceeds to do so himself. And the book also looks at the practicality. In other words, when you take out a politician, does it really solve the problem, or does it make the problem worse? So this is actually a pretty damn good book that is very relevant to today's time, and it's a hell of a read as a novel, which is what it is. So I want to urge our listeners to go to Amazon and get a copy of Assassin.
Yep.
And Speculator and Drug Lord too. They're all quite good. And then the next novel is going to be even more radical. But don't wait. You don't want to fall behind in this series.
Always the very lighthearted topics there, Doug. I have to say, I appreciate your knowledge. I appreciate all the information you have brought our viewing audience. We're definitely going to have links to the book down below so people could find out more information about that, Doug. Anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Uh, yeah, we're on the roller coaster ride of the century. The next 10 years are going to be absolutely historic. And let me just urge everybody to keep it real, because it's coming.
Yes. Doug, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciated this time with you. And if you appreciated it as well, share this video with your friends and family members. You guys are more important than ever. And because you guys are still sharing these videos, I'm still here. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And this is why. Love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.